Hello YouTube, Captain Mac here, and welcome to the full flight tutorial for your PMDG 737 NGX aircraft. Something I should have done a long time ago. We've done tons of flights in this airplane and I just never really got around to the full flight tutorial. Now that being said, I've started something new with my flights where when I do a flight for, say, Life of Virtual Cargo Pilot or Life of Virtual Airline Pilot or something like that, if I have a full flight tutorial on an aircraft, then I start that video with the aircraft already powered up and basically ready to initialize the FMC and then push back and go. It's to save a little bit of time and it's more realistic. However, when I started recording Life of a Virtual Airline Pilot Season 3, Episode 16, I think it was yesterday. There's a nice view of the building there. I realized that I had not done a full flight tutorial on this 737, and so I had to go from cold and dark to cold and dark. So once I have the full flight tutorial done, then we'll start with the power on the aircraft, and then there will always be a link to the full flight tutorial if you're unfamiliar with how to get to that point. So that's what we're doing here, taking care of our full flight tutorial. Today we're going to be flying from San Diego over to Tucson. You may be surprised that I'm not flying into Phoenix. I do like the scenery there, especially since I have that flight beam scenery and I work at that airport. However, flying down to Tucson should be interesting. It's not quite what you would expect, actually. The airport's higher than it is up in Phoenix, and it's a pretty cool approach if you're coming in on runway 29, although I think we're going to be coming in on runway 11 today. This is my second attempt at this full flight tutorial. I was literally almost to top a climb, and I was realizing there were just too many things that were missed because the checklist I have kind of stinks. But it's the only one I got, and we're going to deal with it. I'm going to try not to miss those things this time around. I'm able to restart it because it's a short flight. But as typical of all of my videos, I sort of stumble my way around things and kind of act a fool, and it's, I don't know, maybe it's entertaining or I don't know, but it's real. We all deal with it. I'm not a real world 737 pilot. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in here. Let's jump to a different view here so that we can stay static. We're not moving around the whole time. And the first thing we want to do, taking a look at the checklist that I have here. Now, the checklist that I'm using and what you might see popping up here might look a little bit different. But ultimately the procedures are the same, so just bear with me if you see a little difference there. I'm not going to create all new checklists for this. That's just too much work. It takes forever. So we want to take care of flight planning. We've already done that. We got our flight plan done up in PFPX. Let me grab that for you here so you can take a look at it. There it is. There's our flight plan done up in PFPX text format. So we're going to need to take care of our loading of our passengers and our fuel, and then of course our weather briefing and all of that good stuff. And now the weather briefing, that's going to come from Active Sky, which is this guy down here. And we've already got the flight plan in there, and we can simply grab it, pull it over here, and we can say, okay, so right now, actually that's an hour from now. Right now our wind is 319 degrees. I got to write this down because you know I'll forget it. 319 at 3 knots. I'm using the magnetic wind there, and then the altimeter is 3006. So we've got our weather briefing taken care of. Obviously there's a little more to weather than that. You know, you can see it's cloudy out and all of that stuff, but for our purposes today that's going to work out just fine. Taking a look at our flight plan here again, our trip fuel is 4,749 pounds with 349 pounds of contingency fuel. Fuel to get to our alternate, final reserve fuel, minimum takeoff fuel, all of that good stuff, and ultimately we should arrive with 2,774 pounds of fuel and release with 7913. We're going to add a little bit more, so rather than adding 7,913 pounds of fuel, we're going to put in 8,500. That's my captain's fuel because I do not know what the cost index is for this. There's not actually a place to put a cost index in there when you do your flight plans with PFPX, or if there is, I don't know where it's at. Maybe there is a way to do it, but either way, I don't know what it is, so I'm just going to add a little captain's fuel, and that way we don't run short. Flight plans going from Pogi 5 to IPL, then direct to GBN, and then Dingo 5. We'll take a look at all of that as we put it in there, but we need to load fuel and passengers first, and the way we do that in the NGX is a little bit different than what we've been doing with some other aircraft. We don't have a pre-flight planner, but rather we pull up our FMC. So let's hop in the aircraft here, hop down to our FMC, and you can see I've already got it turned on. Now there's no power on the aircraft. We're in a cold and dark state. We've got that all set up. However, if you hold down the menu button here, you can turn on either one of the FMC or CDUs so that you can set fuel and all of that stuff, right? So go to FS Actions, We've got our ground connections already set. Let's start with our fuel, and you can see it automatically puts it at 45,923 pounds. Almost full. It's always the same amount of fuel, and we don't need that much. So we're just going to type in 8,500 down here in the scratch pad, and then select next to the total fuel here, and there we go. It changes the fuel for us. Easy days. Then we want to take a look at our payload. So it's got us with 92 passengers, but I'm going to be loading 102, I believe it is. That's what our flight plan says. Flight plan shows us with 102 packs, so we'll type 102, click on the line select key here, and then it's got us at 8,000 pounds of cargo. Our flight plan calls for 12,000. We could add more, but I think I'm just going to leave it where it's at, and I think that'll work out just fine. And that takes care of our fuel and passengers. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Now, that being said, that we're doing this flight with Mac Air, let me grab my A cars here, and you can see I haven't started the flight yet, because if I start the flight before I change that fuel, then it's going to show my fuel at start as being 49,000 pounds. I don't want that. So now that I've changed the fuel, I can click on Start Flight. Boarding is started, and everything should be good to go there. Let's shrink this down, and let's make sure we throw a parking brake on. And the reason is, right now, as far as A cars is concerned, the parking brake was on because of the wheel chocks. However, you can see wheel chocks are set here. If we remove the wheel chocks without setting the parking brake, then it'll start our A cars, and we want it to start when we remove the parking brake. We've got wheel chocks set, we've got the ground power connected, we've got the air conditioning unit connected, and the pitot covers are still on. So we'll leave all that as is, and that takes care of our fuel planning and our loading of passengers and all that good stuff. So we're going to go on that. Now let's take care of, on my checklist, it's called a cockpit acceptance, but really this is more like a power-up checklist if you ask me. So that's what we're going to be going through right now. Parking brake is set. We just made sure of that. We need to hop up top and flip the battery on. Battery is located right here. To turn it on, just left click on the cover. You can turn it on without closing the cover, but there's no reason for that. Left click on the cover, battery comes on. The battery's not going to last for a very long time. Okay, the electric hydraulic pumps need to come on. That's these two over here, 1 and 2. And then both those lights should go out here shortly. Landing gear is down. Start levers are in the cutoff position. Those will go off when we have ground power on there. Start levers in the cutoff position. Overhead fuel valve lights are illuminated. That's these guys. I believe these are the ones they're talking about, engine valve lights, but I'm not 100% certain. So if you know, let me know, please. And then ground power needs to come on. And that's this switch right here. Left click it. Ground power comes on, and now we're not just running off of the battery. If we'd have done that much longer, we would have started getting a warning that our battery was running low. Now we take care of the fire warning system. This is something that I actually made a complete disastrous mess out of when I did the Life of Virtual Airline pilot video, because I never did this. This was always done with FS2 Crew, and I do not have FS2 Crew for the P3D version of this aircraft. But I caught a little video that showed me how to do it. It's really quite simple. So you're going to left click this guy here. These two lights should come on, and that's pretty much the sum of it. I don't think there's any other lights come on other than the master caution, and I don't even know that that came on from that, to be honest with you. Left click it again, that'll turn it off, and then when you right click it, we should get, that keeps popping up, get out of my way. We should get all the bells and whistles and all the lights coming on here. There we go. And you can click on the fire warning, and that turns off the bell, but it doesn't turn off the lights, and that's good. So now we can just look at the lights without hearing the obnoxious sound. Left click it to put it back to the center, and then left click this one, all green lights should come on. Right click this one, all green lights should come on. And then there's the cargo fire test. Same thing here. We're going to click and hold, drag our mouse away. We can cancel the bell, and we still have our lights on down here. Discharge lights, these two green lights come on. Left click it, and you're good to go. Alright, what comes next on our list here? Fire warning system, emergency exit lights need to be armed. Hopping back up top, that's this big guy right here. Same thing, if you just right click on the cover, it'll turn the emergency lights on and close the cover for you, and it works out fantastic. Both signs need to come on. Left click both of those. I put it all the way to on. You can leave it on auto if you want. And then test the attendant call button real quick. The recirc fan needs to be on auto. This only has one recirc fan. If you have an 800 model, you'll notice that there's two recirc fans. Just make sure they're both on auto. Engine bleeds need to be off. That's these two down here. So this is engine 1, this is engine 2. Both of those need to be off. And then it says to commence passenger boarding, and then rolls into starting up the APU. But really, there's still a few more things we need to do before we can actually jump into that. One of the things I missed when I tried to do this the first time was doing our lights test. If I left click that guy, it dims the lights. I want to make sure it does that. And then if I right click it, hold the mouse button down and move the mouse away before you release it, and you see all the lights coming on. We want to make sure we test all of our lights. All the lights down here and all the lights up here. And that's just what you're doing. You're looking to make sure all the lights are coming on, and they are. So we're good there. We're not going to start the APU yet because I don't want to burn up the fuel. Burning up the fuel would be pointless right now. So we'll continue on ground power, and then when we get close to our push and start, we'll go ahead and we'll start the APU. Now we jump into our overhead setup, and you jump around just a little bit. This overhead's not labeled, so if you're not familiar with it, you might find yourself getting a little bit confused on it or something like that, but we'll get through it. So the flight control panel needs to be checked, and the yaw damper needs to come on. This is your flight control panel here, and all these covers should be closed. I've never moved this switch. I never will move that switch. I think that's just where it goes. However, we need to turn on the yaw damper. When I click it on, because I don't have the APU on, it's going to turn itself back off. It's going to keep doing it over and over. The good news is we got that bright orange light that says yaw damper, so once we get the APU up and running, we take a look at our overhead, we should know that our yaw damper needs to come on. We need to check the fuel system panel and turn on all the required fuel pumps. We don't need center fuel pumps, but we are going to need the other 4 fuel pumps, so we're going to turn all 4 of those on. And then we want to make sure the cabin utility and IFE passenger switches are both on. Well, in the 800, you've got both of those switches right here. But all we have here is the galley switch. And so I believe it's essentially accomplishing the same function. Maybe somebody could explain to me what cabin utility and IFE passenger switches really are, and then we'll know if this galley switch does the same thing. But we don't have those switches in this aircraft, so we can just, if you're flying an 800 or 900, you're going to have 2 switches right here. You want to make sure they're both down in the on position. Alright, moving to the electrical panel, we want to check that, make sure everything's good to go on the electrical panel. I don't really know what they mean, it just says check it. Okay, checked? I mean, there's electrics all over the place. Which electrical panel are we talking about? Probably talking about, you know, this guy right here. This is our main electricity, right? So we've got ground power on, we're not running the APU yet. There's really nothing to check on that right now. The equipment cooling needs to be normal, and the lights need to be off. That's these 2 switches here and these 2 lights. They are in the normal position. If you left click them to alternate or normal, and the lights still stay off. So we're going to go on that. All the window heat needs to come on, all 4 of these. This is your test switch, and that's the overheat switch. And that's just testing those lights. They all work. Window heat is on. Probe heat stays off. That's these 2 switches right below it here. We're going to leave those off for now. Anti-ice stays off. That's the next panel down. Anti-ice all stays off. And then on the hydraulics panel, we want to check to make sure that both System A and System B switches are on, and that the electric low pressure lights are off. So this is System A, this is System B, and then these were the electric switches, and those were the low pressure lights. So you remember we turned those on. I told you those lights would come off in a little bit. They did. Turn it back on, and that light will go out. And it didn't go out until we put the ground power on the aircraft. Check the air conditioning panel. Make sure that the left pack and the right pack are both on auto, and the isolation valve is open. So this is your left pack. Left click it once to put it on auto. We're already open on the isolation valve, and then the right pack on to auto. Okay, pressurization panel needs to be checked. We need to set our cruise altitude and our landing altitude. This is our pressurization panel here. Cruise altitude is going to be flight level 410. We won't have a long cruise, but we'll get up to 410. And then our landing altitude is right around 2,600 feet. I know you didn't expect that for Tucson, did you? So there we go. 2,600 feet should work just fine. And what do we got next on here? Exterior lighting as required. We don't really need anything right now, but I'm going to turn anti-collision and wing lights on anyway. Logo lights can stay off. And then ignition goes in left or right. Okay, this is the ignition switch right here. Now I always put it on both, because I thought if you put it on left, that's to start the left ignition. You put it on right, that's to start the right. That's not actually the case. So what it is the left ignition will start both engines. The right ignition will start both engines. And then I guess the typical company practice is, either each flight they change it or each day they change it or whatever. I normally put it on both, but I'm going to leave it on left this time. And that takes us into our FMC initialization. Now, in order to initialize the FMC, and this isn't on my checklist, we need to align the IRS. And to do that, we go up to the upper overhead panel here. Then there's a couple other things that need to be done on here anyway, so we're going to do those real quick. But first, double right click, or right click twice on each of these knobs. It'll say on DC, and then they'll both go to a line. Now I used to always think you had to put them back to a line in order to actually align the FMC, and then after it aligned for a little while you put them in nav. That's not the way, you don't have to do that. Just leave them in the nav mode and you can align the FMC. Okay, there are a couple tests we need to do up here. Now you need to have power on the aircraft for 4 minutes before you can do the stall warning test. We've had it, so we're good. If you haven't had power on the aircraft for 4 minutes, the stall warning test won't work. This is the overspeed test. Little cough for you there. And then test the flight recorder by right clicking on the cover to open it, and then left click on the switch. The light should go out, and then right click it to close the switch again. You can see those are telling us to align it now. They're blinking at us, so we hop down to the FMC real quick. Let's move that spoiler lever out of the way. It's telling us to enter the IRS position. Click on FMC. Verify on our ident page that we have the right aircraft, we know what our engine rating is, and that we have the current AIRAC cycle, which we do. Go to position initialization. You can see we've got all these boxes here. It's you shouldn't use the last position. Now again, this is a flight simulator, so we loaded the aircraft in here, so that position is going to be correct. But good practice is to go to the next page and grab the GPS position, because you know this is going to be correct, and if for some reason the aircraft was moved after it got powered down, that last position will be incorrect. There we go. We go ahead and lock that in there, and that takes care of our IRS initialization. So the IRS is going to do its thing now. It's going to start initializing. In fact, it did it almost immediately. So we're going to go as far as that's concerned. What else do we have on here? We're into the FMC initialization. So this guy over here, I'm going to leave on FS actions for now. I don't need to use it at the moment. We want to jump in here and go to our route page next. And we're going to use a company route, which makes this really simple. However, if you don't want to use a company route, you can type in your origin here. For us would be KSAN. And then you could go to page 2 and you could type in your airway and then your waypoint. Airway, waypoint. Airway, waypoint. That's how you put in a flight plan. It's really very simple. I don't think we need to go into all that. Most of you have probably seen that 1,000 times anyway. We're just going to click company route, KSAN to Tucson. Highlight that, execute it. I don't remember the flight number because I'm terrible about that, so we're just going to go with 2336. You do need to have a flight number in here technically. That's how ATC recognizes you. So you want to try and be at least somewhat realistic. Make sure you get a flight number in there. Activate the flight plan, execute that. Now, we can go right to performance initialization, but I can tell you right now that our flight plan is not ready to go because we haven't put in our departure or our arrival yet, and it's a very short flight. So if we went to the legs page right now, you can see there's one leg in there. GBN, that's the Gila Bend VOR. Okay. Boy, my allergies are kicking my butt. Plenty of Captain Matt coughs for you there. So let's go to the departure arrival page, select KSAN departures, and we're going to be taking the Poggy 5 departure. Poggy 5, and our wind we said was 319 at 3, so that's still going to be runway 27, and we're going to transition off of that at IPL. We can execute that, and then if you go to your legs page, you notice all of a sudden you've got a lot more legs in here. Now we're going to start getting a warning at some point that's going to tell us 200 not able to reach 230 knots at jetty right here. Okay, and that makes sense. The aircraft just doesn't have the performance for that. So once we start getting that warning, I'm going to wait till it pops up, which will be after we do some more stuff here. I'll show you how you can get rid of that warning permanently without having to hit the clear button over and over and over. All right, so that takes care of our departure. We could put our arrival in right now, so let's go ahead and do that. Click on the departure arrival page again, select Tucson arrivals, and for us, the weather should be holding out, so we're looking at the Dingo 511 left arrival. Select that one. We're going to transition off of GBN, and it's going to be the ILS for runway 11 left, transitioning off of Dingo. Now this is going to cause some problems in our flight plan, and I want to make sure to show you how to correct those. So let's execute that, okay, and then go back to our legs page. Now we're not going to have any route discontinuities in here. Let me just move up here and switch this to plan so you can see what we got going on. Okay, there's no route discontinuities in here. This will be just fine. So we go to Jetty, out to Loma, PGY, Browse 5, or Browse, sorry, IPL. I'm sorry, there was a discontinuity. GBN, if we highlight GBN and put it in the scratch pad and then put it in those boxes, that's going to connect those, so we can execute that, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that connection. However, we're going to find, we get over here to Baser, and then you can see already that it looks like the flight plan splits here. Well, it doesn't. Pay attention to what we got here. We got baser, then dingo, then mava, right? So baser, dingo, mava, and then when we click again, it goes to the next page. What do we got? We got vectors coming off of mava, and then we got dingo again, and then takoob and lipti and wasan. Okay, well that's a problem, because basically what that's doing is that's taking us from dingo to mava, and then vectors from there, so basically waiting for ATC, so it just travels off that way, and then it wants us to circle back around to dingo again, and then go from dingo to takoob and so on. Now that might realistically work out if you're using ATC, but we're not. So to get rid of that, what we're going to do is we're going to highlight dingo here, the second one. We're going to put it in the scratch pad, and then we're going to replace it with the dingo that's listed here. By doing that, we got rid of mava vectors, and it just went from baser, dingo to takoob, which is what the flight plan really calls for anyway. Now if we step through it, you see it goes baser, dingo, takoob, and then from there to lipti and onto our approach. So that's a simple fix there. And now we want to go ahead and we want to take care of our performance. So a couple ways to get back to those pages. On the one hand, you can just click route and then go right to performance initialization. So let's do that. Another way to do it is you could select index and then select the performance page. Now the zero fuel weight is going to be calculated for us. The aircraft does it. Now I don't know if it does it in the real world. I don't think it does. But in PMDG it does. So you click on it. It's going to put it down in the scratch pad, and you click on it again. It puts it in there and takes care of your gross weight and all of that as well. Our reserves are going to be 2.7 we said. So let's put 2.7 in there, or 2,700. And then our cost index, you know me, it's going to be 85. And then our cruise altitude is going to be flight level 410. Now, we should get a warning that says maximum cruise flight level 406, but I don't think it's going to pop up on us, just because the computer probably knows we're not going to have a problem getting rid of enough fuel to do that. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Alright, now, we could put in cruise wind. My issue with cruise wind is, what do? Do you grab an average? Because we've got several waypoints along the way. You know, what's our cruise wind going to be? Which waypoint do we choose to put in cruise wind? So I typically don't put that in. I'm sure there's probably more to it than I realize. If we go to the next page here, we get a little bit of performance limits information, stuff like that. Nothing you overly need to be concerned about, but what this is doing is it's giving us our minimum speed and our maximum speeds for climb, cruise, and descent. So I don't think you can change these. I've never tried to, and I'm not going to try now. But there you have them. So information if you want it. Okay, moving on. N1 limit. Click on that, and that takes us to this is all about our engine thrust, right? So right now we're set at 95%, which gives us 24,000 pounds of thrust. That's this normal takeoff right here. We don't really need that. We've got plenty of runway to work with. We could probably derate all the way down to takeoff 2. Okay, I did now again, this is my second try at this. I did a takeoff 1 and didn't have any problems with it, so I think I'm going to try a takeoff 2. Now there's a way to calculate this, but I don't really know what that is. I don't know how you calculate it. I could look it up. I'm not going to. If you want to know how to calculate it, do it. My guess is that most airlines have some type of program where their pilots can calculate it very quickly. I'd like to do a normal climb. You notice it selected climb 1 for us. I'm putting it back at normal climb because I want to make sure we get to 41,000 feet. And then if I can remember, after we start our climb out and stuff, I'll hop back on here real quick and I'll show you how you can make it climb even a little bit faster without you'll burn more fuel, but you're not gonna damage the aircraft or anything like that, right? So that's what we're gonna do for our takeoff today. As far as temperature goes, our current outside temperature is 18 degrees Celsius, and then you can this is like selected out or selective outside air temperature, and this has to do with derating the aircraft, and I'm not entirely sure how that works. But I believe basically you could put in a higher outside air temperature here, and it's going to derate it further. So just as an example, if I put in say 20 degrees, I don't want to go far, I think you can put that in here. There you go, and that should change your overall derate. Now in our case, let's clear that out. Let's see if I can clear that out. I can't clear it out. I should have looked. It should have changed right here. I'll have to go back and look at the video, but this should have changed our actual percentage here. So we're 89.1, 89.1. I didn't look at it before I put the 20 in there, and it shouldn't have changed. It may not have changed at all because I barely put any in there, right? As a matter of fact, let's do this. I can fix that. Let's go back to 18. Invalid entry. Let's see if we can do 19. Okay, see, so that changed it to 89.2. So basically what I'm doing is I'm sort of increasing the thrust reduction here, and I just want to do it very minimal because I just chose takeoff 2. But by changing that selective outside air temperature, I'm sort of fine-tuning my thrust reduction. That's my understanding of it. If I've got that incorrect, please feel free to let me know. Okay, let's go to our takeoff page. Now, notice we don't have V speeds in here for some reason. Okay, well, we don't have our flap setting in here. We don't have our center of gravity. If we had not chosen our departure, we could put our flap setting in and we still wouldn't have V speeds. Okay, we're going to do flaps 5 takeoff, so select 5, put it in there, and bam, there's V speeds right there. However, if we want to fine-tune those, let's say it's raining outside. If I go to the next page and I change this to a wet runway, it's going to change our V speeds, especially our V1. Okay, same thing with the runway wind. So let's take a look at those again real quick, make sure we know what we got. We got 119, 121, 127. Okay, our wind is 319 at 3 knots, right? So we're going to put 319/3. Okay, and just to make sure we don't forget, 119, 121, 127. Let's put this in here, and that should change those now. Now we've got 117, 121, 127. Okay, so you see the difference there. So by adding the wind in there, and then of course you could add the runway slope and all that. There's no slope in FSX or P3D. We're in P3D, but there's no slope in here, right? Also keep in mind the selective outside air temperature, you cannot change it on this page. It must be changed on that other page. So keep that in mind. And then go back over here, and then for our center of gravity, I happened to catch a little video from a real world 737 pilot. He said his company does not have this feature in here. They have to calculate it themselves. But for us, we click on it once, 19.9. I don't know if the real aircraft has that ability, but when we click again, it also gives us our trim setting, which is going to be 6.18. And I typically like to set that immediately. And the way to do that, your hydraulics aren't working, so if you've got a button map to it, well, never mind, mine's working. But either way, the easiest way to do it is to scroll it. If you got your cockpit tooltips, scroll this, and what did we say it was? 6.18. So we want to scroll this up to 6.18. I'll bet you we're not going to get any closer to 6.16. Yeah. 6.16 is as close as we're going to get. So that's what we're going to take, 6.16. And now let's go ahead and confirm our V speeds, 117, 121, and 127. And there it is. Unable 230 knots at jetty. We knew that was going to come up, right? So let's go back over to our legs page. How can we get rid of that? Now, on the one hand, I could just put a speed in there. I could say, okay, at jetty I want to be at 150 knots. What was our V2 speed again? Does anybody remember? Not that you're going to be able to answer me, but takeoff page V2 was 127. So I could say, you know what, I want to be at 127 when I get to jetty, and I know I'll be at least 127. However, if for any reason I need to hit the autopilot right away, let's just say something happens, I don't know. What's going to happen is the flight management system is going to try and maintain 127 knots. I don't really want it to do that. So I don't know, what speed do I want to be at? I can select just about any speed, obviously somewhere below 230 knots because it's unable to make 230 knots. Or I can say, instead of having a hard speed right here where it must be at 230 or 220 or 210, I just want it to be at or below 230 knots. So if I press 230 B or Bravo key and then slash, because I don't want to change this, right? Slash, put that in there, 230 knots or below. So I want it to be at or below 230 knots at jetty. I'm going to stop getting that warning now. It's going to stop giving it to me. Because as far as the aircraft's computer is concerned now, if it can't make 230 knots, that's fine, as long as it doesn't exceed 230 knots. Excuse me, another cough for you there. So that's how we get rid of that warning so it doesn't keep popping up on us. So we're going to go on that. Okay. Our flight plan's all set. We've already stepped through it. Our takeoff set. We're good here. So FMC initialization is now complete, and that takes us into setting up our main panel. So if we hop up here, our main panel, or our MCP, is this guy right here. Now taking a look, let's just work our way right across this thing. Okay, that's probably the easiest way to do it. We're not going to set any minimums right now, but we do want to set our barrel, which is 3006. So I'm going to scroll this guy to 3006. There we go. And this, for whatever reason in P3D, this PFD doesn't pop up, but this one does. And they automatically match up. Now you can change that in the settings in here where they don't sync up, I have them synced up, right? So we've got our barrel set. We're still on plan mode. Let's go back to map mode. We're going to want to be there. And I'm going to scroll this down. Nope, just one. There we go. Okay, we don't need to set a course in here. Excuse me. Jeez Louise. We don't need to set a course in here. I don't want this on center, but I could set it on center. You click center twice. This gives you your vertical information here, which I tend to like. But when I'm first departing, really what I want is just my plain map mode so that I can see where I'm going. Okay. Coming across here, let's set our V2 speed. It's down here. It's 127 V2. That's way higher than it needs to be. 127. Runway heading is 275 degrees. Let's go the other way. It's quicker. 275. And then our initial altitude clearance is going to be up to 15,000 feet. That's based on the departure, which you'll see when we do our departure briefing. So we're going to set that to 15,000. Shortly after takeoff, I'm going to try to remember to put that up to 41,000 because we're obviously not using ATC, so it's not really going to be an issue for us. We could set our course to be the same at 275 if we wanted. We don't really have to in this case, but just for simplicity, let's go ahead and do that. Let's set 275. And then let's put both our flight directors on. And then the auto throttle gets armed later. VNav and LNav can both be armed at this point. We need the auto brakes to go to RTO. And let's take a look at the checklist here. I know I've already popped it up, but let's take a look at it. I'm taking a look at it over here. Minimums, we're not setting those right now. Now, they do use the minimums here. You know, they'll say for acceleration height or something, they'll put it on there just as a reference, I believe. But I'm just not going to do it. I don't need to change flight path vector. Altimeter is set to the local altimeter. Let's see, mode selector, we're on maps. Center switch I don't need, it's as desired. Range selector as desired. Course set if needed. We went ahead and set it. Flight directors are on, auto throttles are off. Heading is set to runway heading. Altitude is set for initial clearance of 15,000 feet. Autopilots are both off. There are no flags on the PFD. Auto brake is set to RTO. Engine instruments check. There's nothing to check on them. They're not doing anything right now. We're not setting radios right now. We don't need to set anything on those. We do need to take care of the transponder. We need to set it and then make sure it's off and also run the test on it. So we're going to set it like we always do, 2336. And then let's press the test button. And you see the TCAS is going through its test now. And it'll tell us when it's done.
TCAS test pass.
Fantastic. So, and then we just leave it in the off position and we're good to go. Speed brake needs to be down. It's actually not right now because I was using it the FMC. Thrust levers in the idle position, they are. Engine start levers in the cutoff position, they are. And stabilizer trim set, which it is. And that takes us all the way up to our push and start checklist. Now, I don't think that I missed anything on this. However, we do need to start the APU. Starting the APU is a very simple process. We've already got all the power on the aircraft, so all we need to do is left click this switch twice. That puts it down to start. This needle is going to run all the way up as it starts, and it's going to come back down around 4, and then we should be good to go. So I'm going to break away for a moment. Once that's done, we'll hop back on here and we'll carry on. Okay, APU started up. You can see the light in the middle here, APU gen off bus. Okay, so what we want to do is click both of these switches to put the APU on the bus, and that means now we're running off of APU power. So I can turn ground power off, and then we can disconnect the ground power down here. So I always double check the parking brake at this point, see how it's off again. Not sure why it is, but the parking brake was off. Go to our ground connections, remove the pitot covers, those would have been removed anyway. Remove the air conditioning unit, remove the ground power, and then remove the wheel chocks. There we go. And then I don't think we need this page anymore, so we can jump the FMC over here. And we're going to put this one on the legs page, and this one will stay on the takeoff page. Now we can take care of our push and start checklist. First things first, make sure the passengers are boarded. They are, and I was wrong. We do need this again, actually. Let's go back over here because I know that door is still open. Check your doors. We need to close it. So this tells you what you're going to do if you click the button. So these are all closed. If we click the button, it opens them. This one's open. If we click it, it closes it. We should get the main exit closing. I don't know if I think I turned those off, so fantastic. Now we can put this back over here to the FMC, close it down, and we're good to go. So passenger doors closed and locked now. Clearance for push is obtained. Throttles are in the idle position. Start levers are in the cutoff position. Packs need to go off. That's up top here. You got your left pack and your right pack. Right click them and that turns them off. Okay. Now it doesn't say anything about engine bleeds on here. The APU's running bleed air pressure. It says to check it. So this is our bleed air pressure here. I've always started the engines with the engine bleeds on. And I don't know if that's incorrect or not because they're automatically off, but I'm going to put them in the on position because it works, and I don't know if that's the wrong way to do it or not. Because we have the APU on, let's make sure the yaw damper's on because that's supposed to be on before we start the engines. So now that's on. But we're not turning any, we're not flipping pitot heat on or anything like that yet. Okay, anti-collision light needs to be on. I turned that on a little while ago. Parking brake will be released once we're ready to push back, and then we're good to go on that. Alright, so everything looks good to go for push and start. We need to hop down here, and I'm actually going to use, and so I was wrong again because I'm going to use this. I'm going to use the pushback function on here. It seems to work alright. So we want the nose to go to the left. We want our straight distance. I did it 30 last time. It just wasn't quite far enough, but I don't think it needs to go that much further, believe it or not. So we're going to go 40, see if that works, and then we're going to turn our nose to the left. 90 degrees. We need to type 90 in there. And it's really not quite 90. I think it's a little over 90 degrees to be honest with you. Let's try that. Let's try 95 degrees. Let's see what that does. Okay, nose to the left, invalid entry. Won't let you go beyond 90 apparently. So 90 degrees it is. There we go. And then we can start it from here and we'll listen to what they have to say.
And ground, cockpit.
Go ahead, Captain.
We're all set to go up here. We've been cleared to push and start at your discretion.
Right into that, ready for push. Power and air clear, doors closed. We are ready for pushback. Please parking brake, please.
Okay, parking brake is off. Cleared to push.
Any day, buddy. Any day. Come on. We got places to go.
Brakes off, here we go.
Okay, as we start pushing back, the start procedure for this aircraft is very simple. We're going to leave it on left ignition. We're going to start with engine number 2. We're going to left click this once. Let me pop these up for you. Alright, you can see the start valve is now open. We're going to have a low oil pressure warning. Down here we're looking at our N2. And when our N2 gets to 25, we're going to introduce fuel. Okay, the low oil pressure is going to stay until we get to about 15. 14 or 15. There's 23. There's 25. Introduce fuel. And then when the N2 gets to about 56, the start valve is gonna close. So what'll happen is this switch will turn off when we get to about 56 on the N2. Low pressure, low oil pressure went out right around 14. Almost there. There we go. That kicked off. Start valve open goes away, and then we're waiting for the engine to stabilize, and it should stabilize right around 20, and that takes care of starting engine number 2. Now once that engine stabilized, we can start number 1. Same thing, left click over to ground. You'll see the N2 starting to come up. Start valve is open, and same thing, when we get to 25 on the N2, we'll introduce fuel. Probably have to set the parking brake before that.
Push is complete. Set parking brake, please.
There's 25.
Right, brakes are set and pressure's normal.
Okay, sir. Fill wire is off. Pin is out. Watch the pin on the right.
Oil pressure coming up. Light should go off when we hit about 13 or 14.
We will be watching for the pin and the release from guidance on the right side of the airplane, and we'll see you guys next time through.
Start switch off when we get to 56, and start valve will open, light will go away. There we go, it kicks off. Start valve open, light goes away. Should stabilize around 20, and the oil pressure should stabilize somewhere around 30. And there we go. Close both of those down. That takes care of starting the engines. Change pages here. And that takes us into our after start checklist. Engine generators need to come on. What does that mean? That means we're actually going to use power from the engines rather than the APU. So basically you're taking the APU off the bus, but I always kind of thought about it as sending the power back to the APU. I don't know why. Because I guess just because when you click both of these, this lights back up. So that's how I always think of it. Once we've done that, we can go ahead and turn the APU off. There we go. Probe heat can come on at this point, so both of these come on down here. Engine bleeds on. So so that answers my question right there. We can start engines with the engine bleeds off. Packs both go to auto. Left click both of these. Should hear the air conditioning starting to kick in. Isolation valve goes to auto. Right click it once to put it in the auto position. APU bleed goes off, and then it tells you APU switch off. I already turned the APU off, so my bad. I guess we're supposed to do that in that order. External lights as required. We're going to need taxi lights as we pull out. We don't need strobe lights yet. We'll turn the wheel well lights on. We're not going to need the logo lights because it's nice and bright out. Master caution light, we want to make sure that that's extinguished. That's this one right here. And then press the recall. There we have it. Now, taxi checklist, that's the after start taxi checklist. It talks about the taxi clearance, make sure the ground crew's out of the way, tells you how fast to taxi, tells you to do a brake check, and tells you to set the flaps. I want to set the flaps to 5, and I want to darken my monitors here because I really hate that blue color in the background. It just annoys me. So, darken the monitors real quick. You don't have to do this, it's not part of the tutorial. Flaps are coming in right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break away for just a minute here as the flaps come in. We'll come right back. I could have pushed back a little further still. I'll come right back and we'll start our taxi, take care of our taxi and departure briefing, then we'll be on our way. Alright, we got everything ready to go. We're ready to taxi out here, so let's go ahead and turn track IR on. Big jump here. There we go. Let's go ahead and get that brake off. There we go, brakes off. I just do that by pressing on the brake pedals. Bring in a little bit of throttle here. And let's go ahead and take care of these taxi and departure briefings. Alrighty folks, let's take a look at these departure or takeoff. Yeah. How about we take a look at our taxi and then departure briefings? Yeah, that would probably make a lot more sense, right? Okay, we're down over here off of Terminal 2 East, just sitting off the end here. Push back with the nose pointed to the left. So we're headed down this way to runway 27. It's San Diego. It really doesn't get much simpler than this, guys. We're going to scoot straight on down Bravo and hold short of runway 27. We're actually going to go all the way down here, though. And, I mean, that's literally it. That's your entire taxi briefing. Now, there's, you know, information about aircraft with certain wingspans, all that stuff. None of this really going to apply to us in this case. And, yeah. That's it. Taxi briefing complete. Let's take care of the departure briefing because that's going to take just a little bit longer. There we go, departure briefing. This is tons of obstacles. I am not going to read through these. Just know there's a bunch of obstacles and we're not going to hit any of them. Taking runway 27, initial climb to 520 feet at 275 degrees. Out here, maximum of 230 knots at or below 8,000 feet. That shouldn't be an issue for us, but who knows. That's Jetty. And then we'll be swinging a left-hand turn from there out here to Loma. Maximum 230 knots at or below 15,000 feet. I think at some point I probably said that this was our only altitude restriction. Clearly I was wrong about that. I missed that one. But anyway. And then from Loma, left-hand turn out here to Pogi. That's obviously what our departure's named after. Pogi 5. I probably should have said that as we let off, right? And then to Browse, and then IPL from there, and then we're on course from there. So SoCal departure is going to be on 125.15. Airport elevation is at 17 feet. We're good on all this. We meet all the requirements. We meet takeoff minimums, all that stuff. So initial climb is the only thing really else we got to cover here. Climb heading 275 degrees to 520 feet, then direct to cross Jetty at or below 8,000 feet, then a climbing left turn direct to cross Loma at or below 15,000 feet, then on track 089 degrees to Pogi, then via transition, which for us is IPL, maintain 15,000 or is assigned by ATC. Expect filed altitude 10 minutes after departure. Okay, pretty straightforward, not too difficult. I'll try not to mess it up. There's your departure briefing. Alright, let's take care of this before takeoff checklist down to the line. Master caution light needs to be off, which it is. Recall needs to be checked. You go on that, nothing showing up over there. Flight controls are checked, flaps are set, trim is checked and set. Flight directors are on, and the takeoff briefing is complete. Let's start slowing her down here. And let's take care of our before takeoff checklist. Below the line, takeoff clearance is obtained. Strobe lights need to come on. That's up. Landing lights on. Runway turnoff lights on. What else? Lights, auto throttle needs to come on. And transponder needs to go to TARA. There we go. And that is our before takeoff checklist, which means we're ready to taxi right on out to the runway here. Make sure that your approach path is clear, which it is. Of course, we don't have any AI traffic going on in here, so we don't have to worry about that. Again, I think I've mentioned this before. If anybody knows a good AI traffic program, preferably one that's free for P3D, please let me know down in the comments, because the default traffic, of course, looks absolutely ridiculous. So once we get her lined up on the runway here, we'll go ahead and we'll bring the throttles up. We'll come to a stop first. We want to make sure that we take advantage of all the runway, since we are derating our takeoff substantially. We will come to a complete stop, run our throttles all the way up to about 40% N1, let them stabilize, and then we'll release brakes, not parking brakes, I'll just hold the toe brakes. We'll release brakes, and we'll hit the toga button, and away we go. So, pretty easy. Should have plenty of runway to work with. Probably should learn how to calculate that. That'd be a good thing. That'd be a cool thing to learn anyway, right? Okay, come to a complete stop here. Just double check all our lights and stuff are on there where they're supposed to be. Let's get that up out of the way. Let's bring the throttles up to about 40%. Let them stabilize just a little bit and take off. Toga, and away we go. Alright, positive rate of climb gear coming up. Love that view taking off. They did a nice job on this airport. That flight director really wants us to climb like a banshee, doesn't it? I think that's probably a little bit much. I prefer the crosses for the flight director rather than this single queue, I think. You can change that in the settings in the FMC as well. Now we're coming up on thrust reduction here. Looking good. Go ahead and go to flaps 2. Flaps 1. And flaps up. Should be starting our turn here shortly. There we go. Nothing really to say at this point, is there? Looking good, coming up around the corner, crossing through 6,700 feet there. Speed's looking pretty good. Got just a touch slow, not too bad. man flying it, coming up on 10,000 feet here. Leveler off. Landing lights coming off. There we go, there we go, there we go. Autopilot coming on. There it is. VNAV, LNAV are still armed. Let's take care of this after takeoff checklist. Where are we at here? Let's see. It's got a departure checklist on here. Autopilot nav modes as required. Let's take care of set MCP altitude as required. We're going to go ahead and scroll that all the way to 41,000 now. There we go. Just needed one more there. VNAV's engaged, flaps are up, gear is up, landing lights are off. We are good to go, ladies and gentlemen, and that leaves nothing but that obligatory elevator music. I almost forgot, I wanted to show you guys how you can increase the rate of climb. It's going to burn more fuel, but it's not going to hurt the aircraft or anything. If you come down here to your climb page, actually it's already on, so it's got on, it's on economy climb right now, okay, and it's got a target speed set. You can go max rate of climb or max angle of climb, and if memory serves correctly, max angle of climb gets you up to your altitude in the shortest horizontal distance and the shortest vertical distance, right? So, and then, I don't know if that makes sense to anybody. So I'm going to cover the least amount of ground while climbing to altitude at max angle, and then max rate is just get there the fastest, right? So I might travel further, but I'll still get to my altitude faster. So if I select max angle, okay, you can see that it puts the target speed at 215, right? Whereas it's 311 right now. If I select max rate, it puts it at 247, okay, and overall it gets rid of the economy climb. So 215 it's gonna use VNAV speed and climb slower, or at a slower speed, but it's gonna climb at a higher vertical speed. Does that make sense? So right now we're climbing at about 1,700 feet per minute, 311 knots. If I execute this, you can see now it wants to go to 215, so now the vertical speed is going up, right? And it's going to continue to go up, and it'll climb at the highest rate that it can while maintaining 215 knots. All right, so that's how you can change how fast you get to where you're get to your altitude, right? And the reason I want to do that is because we don't have a long cruise anyway. So there's our top of climb. You can just see it on there. Pop that up for you, maybe. There we go. There's our top of climb, less than 80 miles out, right? And so this will continue to climb at a high rate, at a high vertical speed until it gets down to 215, and then it'll change that vertical speed to maintain 215 knots. All right. So I will see you guys again when we get close to the top of descent. Alright, it's going to be the Dingo 5 arrival for us today, and we're going to transition onto it at Gila Bend VOR. It's actually right down the road from where I'm at. And we'll continue on down there until we reach Baser, bang it right down to Dingo, then to Maba, and then on to our runway 11 approach from there. 8,000 feet is our minimum safe altitude down here. 6,700 feet is the terrain. What else? Expect radar vectors if you're doing runway 29. We're not, excuse me, just completely dying with hiccups and everything today. We're not going to be taking runway 29. For landing information down here from over Dingo via Tucson radial, that's the Tucson VOR, radial 295 to Mava, and then from Mava via 075 degree heading to intercept the localizer or the radial 3, or the Tucson VOR 303 degree radial, and expect approach clearance for runway 11 left. Boy, what a nightmare today, huh? ATIS is on 123.8. I can't even talk, for crying out loud. Airport elevation is 2,643 feet, and I'm done talking for the moment. There's your arrival briefing. Good Lord. Alrighty, folks, we're going to be coming up on our top of descent here pretty quick, as you can see. And of course, there's a little bit of housekeeping to take care of before we start our descent. And on my checklist here, excuse me, a little hiccup there, shows up as a descent, as both descent and arrival checklist. Talks about monitoring speed. We need to set the local altimeter. That's an important one, obviously. So local altimeter is going to be 3009. And let me, wrong one. Pop this guy up for you here. So when you start scrolling on the wheel here, you can see that it's set to standard still. So what I'm doing is I'm setting the local altimeter, but I'm not switching to it. When I push the button here, it's going to switch to the local altimeter. So we want to go ahead and set our MCP altitude. It's going to be 6,000 feet for us. There are no altitude restrictions on the arrival, as you saw. Just an altitude, a minimum altitude of 8,000 feet as we cross over Gila Bend. So 6,000 feet on the MCP should work for us just fine. What else we got here? Seatbelt sign stays on. I never turn that off. Lights on as appropriate. Really, that'll be as we go below below 10,000 feet. And then we've already selected our destination runway. We do want to, we've set up the approach in the FMC. Let me pop this up for you. But we do want to choose our approach reference, our BREF, right? So click on initial reference, and then here's your BREF options here. And, oh, let's see. I mean, it's going to be slow either way. We're going to be coming in slow. So we'll do flaps 30, 125 knots. Select that one, and then put it in the flap speed here. So just select that line, select key there, 30, flaps 30 and 125 on the landing speed, which will make our approach speed 130 knots. Alright, MCP's already been changed. We do want to go ahead and put in our ILS or localizer frequency as well, which is going to be 111.7, and that's in the FMC. You can see right here 111.7, 123 degrees on the course, because we've already selected it in our flight plan. However, in order for the NGX to fly the ILS, we need to come down here and we need to change our nav radios as well. So we want to change both these to 111.7 and then switch them over to the primary. So 111.7 on both. There we go. 111.7, and then our go around uses the Tucson VOR. Let me just verify that. Yeah, uses the Tucson VOR, which is 116.0. So we can set that as our backup in here. And we don't need that on both per se. That's just fine in the one right there. And that's pretty much it. That takes care of everything we need. I'm not sure. why the, I guess once you get below 2,000, that's when the fuel starts showing low there, but that's 2,000 in the tank, by the way. But our progress page is showing that we should still be above our reserve fuel. We're gonna be at 3.5, so we should be fine there. And we'll leave that on progress, as a matter of fact. We're just about to start descending here right now, so let's just make sure that happens. There it goes, starting on the descent right now. So let's go ahead and roll right into the approach briefing, please. Okay, let's see if I can get through the approach briefing without acting or stumbling or making a complete mess of things. Nope, too late. It's too late for that. Anyway, it's going to be the ILS runway 11 left approach into Tucson today. HOTAS is on 123.8, Tucson approach on 119.4, and the tower is on 118.3, ground on 124.4. Localizer frequency on 111.7 with a final approach course of 123 degrees. Quite certain that I'll forget to set that on the MCP. Big surprise there. Glide slope intercept at POSIB, which is 4,600 feet MSL or 2,001 feet AGL. I couldn't even think of that now. Decision altitude of 2,800 feet or 201 feet above the ground. Airport elevation again 2,643 feet with a touchdown zone elevation 2,599 feet. Taking a look at our map view here, you can see it's pretty straightforward. Lipty down here to Lipty, then to Wasson, Calls, Posib, Parse, Huggick. Those are some interesting names, and then on in from there. We do have information for where these waypoints are in relation to the Ryan. That's not a VOR. That's a ADF, right? Yeah, ADF. Is that right? No, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so that's what these lines are right here. Don't mind me, guys. It's just been a disaster all day. Coming out here at Lipty, 6,000 feet, descending down to 5,500 at Wasson, 5,000 at Calls, 4,600 at Posib for the intercept of the glide slope down to Parks, and then Huggick, unless we have to perform a missed approach, in which case, coming back up top, we will climb to 4,000 feet, then a climbing right turn to 6,000 feet via heading 300 and outbound via the Tucson 270 degree radial to the Ryan NDB. That's the term I was looking for, not ADF, NDB, thank you, which is 12.8 miles from the Tucson VOR and hold. Okay, so now kind of got that figured out. Happy lights on the left-hand side. There's your pictorial view or whatever of your go-around information. For the ILS, 2,800 feet is our decision altitude, and the weather's looking good, so we shouldn't have to worry about using the radar, right? So, runway visual range 2,400 feet, I believe that is, right? Or a half mile. That can't be right. Yeah, that is right. 2,400 feet or a half mile. Okay. Complete disaster as far as my briefings go today, but we got it taken care of anyway. Now we go fly it and try not to crash the plane. Alright, we're going to be in here a lot quicker than you expect. Let's take a look at this approach / sort of landing checklist I got going on here. The approach is selected and briefed. Nav radios are set for the approach. We did that earlier, so we put the ILS frequency in both of the nav radios. That would allow us to do an auto land. You have to have it in both if you want to do an auto land. Approach intercept will be 180 knots, which we're going to start slowing down to that here shortly. Let's go ahead and do a speed intervention here. You see how that switched to VNAV speed? By putting the flaps out there, it goes back to VNAV path. And let's bring this speed all the way down to, let's just bring it down to 180 knots because we're right on top of it already. You just can't tell on the nav display there. Alright, so there's 180 knots. We're set with that. Flaps 5 will be coming in here shortly. We need to get a little bit slower before we do that. We're going to use some spoilers to help out. Take them to flaps 2 now. Speed's coming down nicely. We're still about 20 miles out, so we're doing fine. Take those spoilers back out. Now let's go ahead and arm them. That's going to be armed for a short final there, or for the actual landing. Engine start switches need to go to continuous. That's these two up here. Right click them each once. That puts them into continuous mode. Landing lights are on. Runway turn off lights are on. Spoilers are armed, engine start switches are set, and we're good to go except for our actual landing checklist, which of course we're not ready to do that yet. Anyway, so looking here at our nav display, you can see that we're about 15 miles out from the airport now, coming down to 6,000 feet. I think it got to 6,000 a little bit early. It's supposed to be there at Lipty, and I mean Lipty's still a ways up there, right? We got Wasson, Calls, Posib. Oh no, here's Lipty right in front of us. Well, there you go. All right, let's go ahead and arm the localizer. Should grab it almost immediately. It did. It immediately grabbed the localizer, which is kind of interesting considering the mountains. But now we can arm the approach switch. There we go. And wait. Wow, that sneeze snuck up on me there, guys. Okay, so we're already locked onto the localizer. We've pressed the approach switch. We're waiting for it to actually grab the glide slope there. And we'll keep our speed at 180 knots for now. That's fine because we still got a little ways to go here. And the aircraft is at a point where it can slow down pretty effectively. So let's let it get to 180. Maybe we'll dial it back just a little bit more after that. And then just continue on in from there. Pretty straightforward. This is an easy aircraft to fly overall, but there's a lot of systems in it, you know, just like any of the other complex aircraft we fly. This thing's popular. I'm sure you guys know this is a popular aircraft, so definitely enjoy flying this thing. It is interesting that I don't have my my dots here, right? So I've got the diamond there. The diamond seems to be moving, but I don't have my dots. And if I move this over to approach mode, I've got them on here, so we'll see if it grabs that glide slope. I'm actually a little concerned that it might not grab the glide slope here. So if it doesn't, we're going to have to move pretty quick to take control of the aircraft so we don't get too far above the glide slope. But typically you would have your dots over here. Now that might be an aircraft configuration thing. Maybe that's the way Southwest has it set up, and since this is supposed to be a legitimate Southwest configuration, maybe they don't have the dots on there. Although, to be honest, I would be a little surprised by that. Real quick, let's take a look at our go-around altitude here. Let's see, climb to 4,000, then it's going to be 6,000. You guys already got that during the brief. I'm just looking at it again over here on the approach chart. So once we grab that glide slope, I'm going to want to, well, we're already at 6,000, so we can just leave that there. And it did grab the glide slope without any issues. So let's go ahead and bring the landing gear down, move the flaps to 5, and let's roll that speed back all the way back to 130 now.
Gear down.
So that's our VREF speed plus 5 is 130 knots. Keeping an eye on that flap schedule as it comes in. So there's just passing the indicator for flaps 1. And before it gets to flaps 5, we want to make sure it's on 10, which it already is. But let's go ahead and as we get closer to flaps 5 there, we'll go ahead and move it to flaps 10. I just said it was already on flaps 10, didn't I? But it's not. It's on flaps 5. So before we pass flaps 5 on the speed tape, we want to go to flaps 10, and you can see that those two settings are about the same on there. So now we'll go to the next flap setting. That's 15. Now to flaps 25, and then flaps 30. We've already armed the speed brake. It's armed right there. I think I forgot to do that in my last video with this aircraft. You may have noted after we took off, I forgot to put the landing gear lever in the off position. My bad. Track IR coming on. Big jump here. Boom. There we go. All right, we're coming into our speed here. Everything's looking absolutely exquisite. Let's see what we got here. No, that's just going to stay the same no matter what. So, all right, just let that speed settle just a little bit here. It's just a little bumpy. You can see the aircraft getting just a little bit of movement in it. You can actually change that with chase plane for those of you guys, folks who are unfamiliar with chase plane. So just in this view right here, and I'm just doing this on the other screen just to show you, I can go to the motion effects and I can, you know, I don't know if I can get it to do it. There's a little gyroscopic there, engine effects. Some of them you'll see, some of them you won't. Just depends on what's going on. Acceleration effects a little bit. I'm just kind of messing around with them a little. They don't seem to be doing much of anything right now. I'm messing around with these, not really making a difference. Okay, there you go. So that's the wind right there. Right? That's a little crazy. Alright, let's stop messing around with that. Let me shrink that down there. Okay, we're established on our approach here. Everything is looking fantastic. Let's go ahead and get this autopilot off at this point. There we go. Autopilot is off. Looking good. 750 feet per minute on our descent rate here. She wants to wander to the left there just a little bit. Let's go ahead and turn that auto throttle off as well. There we go. Alright, we have complete control of the aircraft at this point. Boy, it just, the nose just sort of came up on us there, didn't it? That was interesting. Alright. Just a little high there. Just a little, not too bad.
1,000.
Let's listen for our call-outs. Let's try and get a nice smooth landing in here. Without floating it. Oh my goodness, I float the airplane all the time. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I'm going to try not to float it, but still get a decent smooth landing in there, right? Oh yeah, the wind's just maybe kind of gusting around just a little. I don't know. Or maybe I'm just not very good at flying.
500. 400. 300. 200.
Landing. There she settled down.
100.
Got a little high all of a sudden.
50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Floated it. Bad too. Look at that. Jeez Louise. Just set her down already. Wow, that was almost embarrassing. That was shameful. That was embarrassing. Turn the auto brakes off. Bring the spoilers down. Try and keep from wandering all over the runway. Let's get the flaps up. Landing lights off. Taxi light stays on. Start the APU. Maybe. I can actually click the button. Let's get her up around the corner here, point it back in the right direction, and then we'll take care of our after landing checklist here. There's that stupid up reverser kicking in on its own. No idea why it does it. It's engine 2, no matter what aircraft I'm in, it's engine 2. And it's not my throttles, I promise you that, because I've actually changed it to different throttles. And it still does it. It's absolutely ludicrous. Okay, as we're sort of rolling here, let's take care of our after landing checklist. Speed brake lever is up, flaps are up, probe heat can come off. That's way up here, these two. 1 and 2. Probe heat's off now. Let's see, engine start switches go off. Off. I know we're stopped, that's alright. Landing lights are off, taxi lights as required, strobe lights can come off. There we go. Flight director's off. 1 and 2. Transponder standby. If we can see it from this view. There we go, transponder to standby. And APU's already been started. Alright, fantastic. So that takes care, excuse me, another hiccup there, of our after landing checklist. I'm going to go ahead and taxi the aircraft in. And then I'll come back on here and we'll take care of shutting everything down. Alright, we got us parking space down here on the end. Let's take care of this shutdown and secure checklist and procedure. Brakes, parking brakes need to be on. That's these guys, and they are. Start levers can go to the cutoff position. Make sure the APU is on the bus first, so that light shouldn't be on, okay? 1 and 2. I don't know why there's a sound in the background like the engines are throttled all the way up. You hear that? That's kind of weird. Probably a little glitch from jumping in and out of the aircraft. Ground power can come on at this point, so let's go ahead and connect all of that. Select your menu, go to FS Actions, Ground Connections, set the wheel chocks, connect the ground power, connect the air conditioning unit, close that down, hop up top, switch the ground power on. We don't need it. We don't need the APU anymore. So turn that off, that off. There we go. Okay, now we turn the APU off. Yeah. Just double check, make sure we're not missing anything. Okay. For some reason, sometimes I don't know if I just don't click the button right or something, but it's like the ground power doesn't come on or something. Okay, moving on. Doors and stairs, we can open those up. So hop down here, go back here to doors, and you can open the left front entry door and the air stairs. Now it wants to tell me the exit's opening. I don't know. Anyway, air stairs are opening as well. Fuel pumps can all go off at this point. 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's actually really annoying that it sounds like the engines are throttled all the way up right now. It's kind of driving me nuts. I don't know why it's doing that. Cabin utility IFE passenger switch can go off. Again, I think it's the galley switch here, so we're going to turn that one off. All the signs can go off, obviously, so that they can offload. Turn both of those off. Window heat can come off. Probe heat's already off. Electric hydraulics can go off at this point. All bleeds off. So APU bleeds off. Both engine bleeds off. Isolation valve needs to be closed. Right click that one to close it. Recirculation fan stays in the auto position, which it is. External lighting can go off. So off, 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 off. And of course I always forget to turn the taxi light off as I pull in. That probably ticks off the guys waving me in, right? Emergency exit lights can go off. Right click the switch and then right click the cover and then right click the switch. There we go. And then the battery can go off. So right click the cover, right click the switch, and then the ground power off. And it still sounds like the engines are going at almost full throttle, doesn't it? That's going to wrap it up for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope it was helpful for you. I know we've done tons of flights in this thing already, so I'm sure most of you are like, yeah, we didn't really need this. But now that I've got this put together, when I do flights in the NGX in the future, I can say, hey, we're going to start from a powered up state. If you don't know how to get to that state, check out my full flight tutorial here, and I can put a link, and then we're good to go. So, you know, and there's always going to be new people coming along too. Maybe have never flown this aircraft, so give them an opportunity to have a good full flight tutorial available to them. I hope that they enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I appreciate all you guys' support. If you haven't already done so, smash the subscribe button. Well over 5,100 subscribers at this point, and climbing by day, and I really appreciate every one of you. Also, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up down below. If you give it a thumbs up, I think it makes it easier to find in the searches. Also, if you're going to give it a thumbs down, I know most of them are trolls, but either way, if you want to give it a thumbs down, that's fine. Give it a thumbs down, but put some constructive comments down in the comment section, not just, you know, you suck or something like that, because that's just pointless. You're not going to hurt my feelings, so I don't really care, but, you know, try to be constructive about it. You know, if you don't like the video, maybe we can improve on it next time, right? But either way, moving on. You can still like us on Facebook. I haven't been real active on there, but I'm still on there. You can follow us on Twitter. I don't think I've ever been active on Twitter, but we don't have hardly any followers over there anyway. And you can follow us on Twitch at CaptainMac3588. Well, that's where we're going to do our live streams. We've done a few in the past. We'll do some more in the future at some point when we get to them. And that's going to wrap it up for this one, folks. As always, keep the blue side up, unless otherwise instructed by ATC. God bless you, and have a fantastic day.